So, the Tiger Lillies, Martin Jacks, Adrian Stout, and Buddy Budeno. Is it? Yeah. Welcome to the Tampereen City Library. Martin, you are the founder of the band. Would you like to introduce your partners in crime?
Oh, introduce them, yes. This one's Adrian Stout, and he plays the saw, the theremin, and the contrabass, and the Jaws harp in the Tiger Lillies. But you also, I really like your tuba or the
euphonium.
Yeah, euphonium as well. I think we should use that more in the future.
Okay, you can carry it.
I really like it. And you know that song, Heroin? You know,
yes.
If you want to win.
Yes, if you want to win.
That's really good on that song.
Yeah,
so
we did it. We did it actually. We played a concert in the foyer of the British Library, and I brought it along. Oh. And we actually played. I actually brought my euphonium along when we did a live concert in the foyer of the British Library a few years ago when we did the album.
Sounds really good. Anyway, that's Adrian.
That's me.
And then over there is Booty, and he plays the drums, and he's he's also a natural clown as well. He's very natural.
And we've got him playing the washboard as well on
and
the song at the moment. Yeah.
But you also play the bass, don't you? You're quite good at it.
I'm glad you're asking. No, I did play the double bass for a few years before I joined the band. Yeah. They asked me to stop.
Yeah. So there you are.
And you?
And Martin plays the accordion mostly, that's right. And he plays the ukulele and piano in the band most of the time. But you should see his. He's got one of the largest collections of ukuleles, I think, of anyone on the planet, really, because he tends to bought a lot of ukuleles over the years and had to find somewhere to put them all. So he has a studio in Berlin that's full of very interesting instruments. Lots of keyboards, Hammond organs, pianos, string machines, all kinds of things, and obscure Italian guitars.
Yeah, it's true.
So he has a lot of weird, unusual instruments, which we've always tried to find the more kind of unloved instruments and give them some light, and and performance opportunities.
Yeah.
Good. So, who or what are the Tiger Lillies?
What are the Tiger Lillies? Anybody else?
I was just waiting for you. I'd like to know as well.
No, the Tiger Lillies are a vehicle for Martin's songwriting, I think, really. I mean, they're kind of it's what the kind of the form that Martin's songwriting expresses itself for in a sort of live and recorded format, really, I suppose. I mean, you started off as a songwriter, and you wanted to find a way to do that in front of people without using maybe more traditional instruments of the sort of late 80s, like synthesizers, and so you decided accordion would be the kind of a good way to accompany yourself with, and then drums, upright bass and drums seemed like the most kind of
seemed like a good idea.
Seemed like a good idea at the time. And he thought he'd be on top of the pops in 2 years, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you. So you have a long history and a huge number of albums. Is it already over 40 or more?
I think it's over 50 now, actually.
Okay,
we've
wow.
We've kind of lost count at this point, really, and it's kind of irrelevant, really, how many we have. Really, they're just.
We have a fan. He's from the Czech Republic, and every time we see him, he follows us. He comes all around the world, and every time he has a new T-shirt. He makes a new T-shirt, and it's got all of our albums. He always has all the albums on, and and you look at it and you think, and
God, that's
my
awful.
God, I'd forgotten we even did that one. And he's just got this. Yeah, so he knows more about, what we've done than we do.
Yeah,
which is funny. Yeah,
and it's beautiful, I think also. I think that variation is astonishing with you, and so are the collaborations. Mm-hmm. You had albums such as Spitbucket, The Brothel to the Cemetery, and Farmyard Filth before you created the music for Shock-Headed Peter, a musical theatre adaptation of a children's book in 1998. In Finnish it's called Jöröjukka.
Right, yeah.
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 The production brought forth a Tiger Lillies album of the same name that year, and it won 2 Olivier Awards in 2002.
Yeah, that's true.
And you have a work with Kronos Quartet, 2003, and illustrated writer Edvard Gore on Gory End. I don't know, here we have. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was inspired by a box of unpublished stories and drawings that Gore sent to you. And the album was released shortly after his death and was nominated for Grammy Awards for Best Classical Crossover Album.
Yeah.
So please tell us more about these albums, and how do you feel about awards and nominations?
Well, we you know, it probably helps. You know, probably helps if you've had you know, one or few things like, because then your people, you know, they think, oh well, we could maybe take them seriously. You know, maybe they won't actually be talentless oiks. You know, so I suppose it's sort of, you know, gives maybe some people actually think that if you've won something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And also, the thing is, we've not ever tried to win awards. It's like, God, we wouldn't know how. Shock-Headed Peter was a great collaborative piece of work with great directors and puppeteers and actors and us. So it really kind of brought a lot of things together that were happening in the kind of the performance scene, I think, in the kind of late 90s. And it was quite inspirational for a lot of theatre makers and musicians. So I think having an award to be recognised for that, I think it recognises the work that you know, it was an ensemble. Martin got an award, Olivier Award, for his performance, and the ensemble got an award for their, you know, collaborative kind of work. It was a devised piece of work, so the songs kind of fitted around this devised storyline. So I think it was good to be acknowledged, and it means you know, we were playing in, you know, decent venues, but suddenly you're playing to over 1,000 people a night in a West End show all over the world, or big theatres all over the world. It gives you an opportunity to do more things later on. So I think it was incredibly helpful for us. It gave us a foothold in an area, in a world that we wouldn't necessarily have found it as easy to access. So I think winning something is not the sense of winning it. It just gives you a chance to kind of then make another 40 albums and tour and make new shows. And we wouldn't have done the collaboration with Kronos Quartet if they hadn't seen us playing Shock-Headed Peter in San Francisco. I think it was, you know, so one thing leads to another. Though I can't say the Grammy's been enormously helpful. Apart from the fact that, you know, people can say, oh, they're Grammy nominated, and it's you know, it's some sort of recognition about, again, the work you've done and hopefully want to do in the future.
Yeah. You have anti-war songs, I would say so, like Die for a Country, In the Last Days of Mankind, inspired by Karl Kraus, and the new one, Birds Are Singing in Ukraine, and albums like A Dream Turns Sour, based on World War I poetry. What interests you about these issues? Anti-war. Issues, yeah.
Well, every war, well, interest is a weird term, I'd say. What is interesting about a war, I think it's the suffering that people go through when a war is going on, as we all know at the moment again. It's the connection as well, especially with this band. You know, we have a strong connection to Ukraine and to Baltic states, and played a lot in Russia. I think we won't for some time now, but so there are fans, and you get to know people. Where now we get to know you. So, you know, if there's a war in Helsinki tomorrow, we will be affected by it. So that is running around in your head, and so I think Martin just gets inspired by the relation to it. you know, by the people you know and their emotions and the messages we get from our fans, how they have to deal with it. We played Ukraine last year, and it was very moving after the show. Almost everyone gave us a CD and said, could you write, please, for Mikhail, for Alex, for Sasha? It's my brother, it's my cousin, it's my father. Can't be here. He's at the front at the moment. So that was very moving.
Yeah.
And good that we were there to bring a little bit of joy, maybe. I think.
Yeah, it was great playing there. We're going back as well, hopefully in May. So, yeah, that'll be good. But you know, we've written lots of. I mean, that's the Last Days of Mankind. It's quite a famous. It was quite a famous play and written in the Austrian. What was his name? Karl Kraus.
Karl
Kraus. So that's, but you know, it's sort of war's a terrible thing, and you know, so we're against it. You know, but at the same time, if a country is attacked and its people, you know, its lives are threatened, then you feel sympathy for them, and you know, that's why I felt towards Ukraine, really. You know, the people there, suddenly their country is assaulted, so they have to try to protect themselves, and you know, so it's. But it's sad. It's tragic, and it's very sad. And I think that you know, people like Vladimir Putin. The next album we're going to do is actually Macbeth. It's the Shakespeare's Macbeth, and it's and I've been writing songs on you know, Macbeth the last couple of months, and it's striking the parallels between Macbeth and Putin. They're actually virtually identical, even though they're, you know, hundreds of years apart. You know, but the psychological profile of both of them is virtually the same. They're both monsters. You know, Macbeth was a monster, and Putin is a monster, and they're, you know, and that's so that's quite interesting.
Yeah. Over the years, you have reframed well-known works, including Punch and Judy, The Little Match Girl,
Match Girl,
The Ryan of the Ancient Mariner, and Hamlet, also Shakespeare, and collaborated with artists like photographer Nan Goldin. What motivates this diversity?
I think quite often it's like people approach us because they see something in our work. We don't go to, you know, when we've done The Match Girl and things, people, directors particularly, you know, want to kind of explore a subject, and then they kind of come to us and say, would you kind of want to work with us exploring these things? And so Martin then takes his kind of a point of view from it, and will kind of tend to have a different point of view, I think, than a director might have, and they, you know, it becomes something kind of more interesting, I think, because we tend to tell a lot of the stories just with songs rather than lots of theatre shows with lots of text. So we tend to tell the stories, and it's more kind of, I don't know, more emotional. You tend to focus on very, very detailed parts of certain stories, I think, that other people maybe don't kind of acknowledge. Like, for instance, when we did Hamlet. You kind of focus a lot on Ophelia and Hamlet's relationship, and less on the kind of the political, you know, stuff of the court and all that sort of thing. It became a much more about those two characters, because that's what sort of seemed to resonate in some way, more than just the whole, you know, more than the other stuff that goes around with all the, you know, the backstabbing and the plotting and all this sort of stuff. It became a slightly different approach to it.
It's difficult in Macbeth to do that because that's all there is.
Yeah, well, perfect.
So,
well, there's made in Macbeth, I suppose. That sort of thing.
Your music has been referred to as Brechtian, punk, cabaret, and art rock. How would you like to describe or define your music? And where are your roots and influences? And do your lyrics influence the style?
Do my what?
Do your lyrics influence the style?
lyrics influenced the style. Well, I don't think. I mean, Brecht was really. I don't know. I was lucky in a way. I mean, he's got kind of his name represents a very wide group of writers, really, and so he's kind of got quite lucky, really. I think Brecht to be so, associated, because like Charles Dickens or The Little Match Girl, and they were writing about social stuff, as you know. Brecht was writing about that as well, and so I think it's a bit more wide, really, than. But Brecht seems to have become this kind of name,
tag, like.
But there are lots of, I mean, I think Charles Dickens knew Hans Christian Andersen, and they're sort of, and they're very similar. Like The Little Match Girl, she died, selling, tried to sell matches. Nobody would buy her matches, and then we've also done Charles Dickens as well, and we did the Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and they're both talking about poverty quite a lot, in their work, and Brecht. But then, we also did the Beggar's Opera, which Brecht again kind of purloined and turned into the Threepenny Opera, and got very famous. That was really what made him famous. And in fact, it comes from the John Gay, the Beggar's Opera. And actually, in a way, it's kind of. I'm not trying to. I'm not. I don't want to have a go at Brecht, but he's kind of quite fortunate, I think, in some ways. That it's just that thing at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
He was, I think,
Yeah.
And also, I mean, he had the composer was really important, So Kurt Weill was a really great musician and came up with a really great tunes and things, So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. A friend of mine said he could see you in the scene from Bulgakov's Master and Margarita. Any thoughts?
We almost did a version of Master and Margarita. This is actually, I'm glad you brought that up. So we almost did a version of Master and Margarita, and a friend of ours who was going to be the director of it, Javor Garv. I've never pronounced his second name, but anyway, it's Javor. He was from Bulgaria, and this was before. This was when when he was working in Russia. He was doing some stuff, and so he actually approached a Russian theatre to actually to be the producer of Master and Margarita, and then he rang me up about 4 months later, and he said, "Martin, I'm terribly sorry, but I don't think I can carry on working in Russia. They're starting to kill directors."
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
And he wasn't joking. It was, they were actually they started to murder. They were starting to murder the artists, the directors and things. So
when was this? A few years ago.
Sorry?
A few years ago.
A few years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a few years ago. I think it was the last. Actually, it was the last time we played in Russia, which when we did Hamlet, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did the Shakespeare Festival in Moscow, and then we were still talking about possibility of coming back, but then obviously that window closed. I'm sure there's a file on us about this thick anyway at this point.
Of course, we're probably preaching to the converted in this audience, but of course, if we were in Greece, for example, about 1 person in 4 in this audience would actually be pro-Putin, because that's what it's like in Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I feel that you have a soft spot for the underdog. Can you tell us more?
I've always had a soft spot for the underdog. Yeah, I don't know why. Every time I watch the sport, and when I always used to want the one that looked like he was going to lose to win. You know, sometimes they even do. You know, so yeah, I don't know why, but I've always had a soft spot for the underdog.
Yeah.
Don't know why really.
That's how I got the job in the band.
Okay. Good to know. What do you think about humor and the dark side of life? Beauty and the morbid things.
The what, sorry?
What do you think about humor? And the dark side of the life?
Oh, humour's really good. I'm a really big fan of humour. I went to in the museum. I went to this museum in I forgot the name of where we've just been. Where have we just been?
Helsinki.
Right. Helsinki. Anyway, I'm there. Can you remember what the museum was called? No, me neither. It's a big art museum.
Kiasma.
Yeah, probably that.
Maybe,
probably
yeah.
that one. It's a big one. It was 5 floors, I think, or maybe 5 floors, and there was artists on each floor. And the first, so we got the lift to the top, and the top floor, there were sort of bits of rock with Mars bar wrappers on them. You know, so I sort of looked at it.
Interesting.
And then we went into another part. This artist, and she'd put like toilet seats and like toilet basins and sort of hung them on the wall. So I didn't, I just thought, well, not really.
Yeah.
But then we went downstairs, didn't we? We went downstairs into the next level, and there was an artist there. And he actually was really great because he used humour. It was very funny. So it was kind of. Do you remember any of the titles? There was one that was about something about syphilis, wasn't there? He'd done an ode to syphilis. You know, syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease. You know, he was he was Japanese, English Japanese, and then there was this interview. He was being interviewed. He was pretending to be but he was affecting a Japanese accent. And it's this very sort of black humour, and there were sort of little Chinese things doing this by the side of
Lucky
the TV
cats.
screen. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
So there was lots of, it was very kitsch and funny and silly, and I like that. I can't really stand sincerity. People that are really sincere, I find them very boring and tiresome.
Okay.
And I think the most art, it tends to be a bit like that. And but he was great. I don't know what his name was, but I'm sure anyone, if you could look, anyone, you could do a bit of research.
Like that Edward Gorey book. Edward Gorey has huge amounts of humour and skill, and it's kind of disturbing. I think that's the good thing about us. When we use humour, we use it to sort of kind of make people not quite sure whether they should be laughing, or if they are laughing, why are they laughing? What's that it makes them question their own kind of responses to some of the stuff that we do. Sometimes we do songs completely straight, and people will laugh for no reason whatsoever. And we don't even know why. And then sometimes we'll do a funny song. And people, so it's just about keeping people slightly unnerved and unsettled. I remember once, was it Blixer Bargeld, who used to play when he was playing with Nick Cave? He said to, I think Martin, or said to us, the thing is, Martin, you are not afraid to be funny.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of having that sort of braveness
so
about using humour, but not being, I don't know, it's just using humour as a part of your artistic expression. I think some people are very frightened of it. They don't want to feel foolish, or they want to be taken seriously.
Yeah,
and I
or
think
too silly.
So they would never kind of make a joke. I can't imagine Bono makes many jokes in his songs, but you never know. I mean, I find him hilariously, awful, but. But I don't think. He wouldn't be. No, he wouldn't do a song. We've got a lot of songs where humour is kind of quite an important part of the delivery system.
Exactly.
It's a delivery system, and it gets something across. Not necessarily the humorous part, but it's the way of getting it to someone.
Yeah. You have said that offending people is part of my job. So how come and why the provocation? It's the same
funny.
thing, but
What? It's funny to offend people.
Yeah. No, it's funny to offend people, and
I'm not trying to insult people necessarily, but offend.
You are.
I'm not trying to insult people necessarily. I don't know really. Is there a difference between insulting and offending?
maybe.
Maybe I think
Probably,
insulting
I think
is
so.
on purpose,
Yeah,
and offending is
yeah.
by accident.
Maybe that's it.
it's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, someone takes offence. That's their.
It's theirs.
That's them. It's not on them. It's not. You're not offending them. People tend to take offence rather than you're offending someone.
Yeah.
Let's think about that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really funny to see that sometimes there's a song, we laugh about it, everyone we know can laugh about it, and then you play a show and 5 people get up and leave while you're playing the song because they get triggered, they get offended, and you don't know why, and it's in their life. And I think it's brilliant if you create something on a stage that moves people to get up and leave. Other art, as you said, is too serious, and you just don't leave. You just.
I think we are trying to kind of deal with the bigger subjects, religion, and people
that
not
is big, I didn't
thinking about stuff. So I think it's not like we're trying to offend an individual. It's more kind of these large organisations or group thoughts that that we maybe think need to be kind of laughed at a little.
Yeah. So, you sing about banging the nails to the cross of Christ. Soon is Easter, and burning libraries. Are there any taboos or topics you would be reluctant to explore?
I wouldn't talk about Muslims.
Okay.
You know why, though, don't you? Because if you talk about Muslims, one of them's probably going to come and cut your throat with a machine, with a thing that they, I think you've had, maybe not here, but in Scandinavia, or that's actually happened, hasn't it? There's been a few. There was an artist, I think, he got murdered for that, for doing something. So I wouldn't talk about Muslims, and it's not. I'm not actually being. I'm not trying to be insulting when I say that. I just wouldn't do it because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Somebody might come and cut my throat with a.
Salman Rushdie lost an eye recently.
Well, Salman Rushdie would, obviously. I mean, he's most of his life, hasn't he?
Yeah, and then
Fear.
he got attacked,
and he got
blinded in one eye recently,
Yeah.
and that's like 30 years after he wrote that bloody book.
Yeah.
So, it's I mean, I think we want to kind of expose certain kind of things that we want people to think about, but we don't want to be physically assaulted for it. I mean, it's about ideas and about kind of trying to explore, things that we think maybe people should think about.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose that's the thing. I'm not a Christian, I'm not sing about crucifying Jesus and things like that. But I mean, you've got to hand it to them. I mean, no one's ever threatened to kill me. So maybe Christians are a bit more tolerant in some ways, at least. But then I suppose, you could definitely disagree with that in other ways, couldn't you? Abortion and things like that.
Yeah.
They're pretty horrible in some ways, aren't they?
There was a few people in pubs over the years who've tried to kill you.
Sorry?
The few people in pubs over the years who tried to kill you back in the early days, didn't they? They were sort of
Well, they didn't kill me, but they threw things
Yeah,
at me.
they used to throw things at us and kind of like shout at us and get quite annoyed. But that was more by our just existence more than anything we did or said. It was just the fact that we were there. They found that incredibly offensive.
Lessons in Nihilism is your latest album. What kind of nihilism are you trying to teach us?
Well, actually, it's a bit of a deceptive title, really, because I'm not. I don't even really know much about nihilism, really, but it sounded like it had a good ring to it. Lessons in nihilism. It sounded, quite profound.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know much about nihilism. Really.
And you can shout it everything to the avoid, isn't that?
I mean, people say things like, the Tiger Lillies have been writing about nihilism for the last 20 years. And so I think, so obviously I picked a good title. I don't really know what it even means,
Yeah. I don't see either, except Nietzsche, something about Nietzsche maybe.
It's not believing in God and not believing in anything. It's not spiritual. It's more of a kind of reality experience is kind of more
and trusting
important.
to yourself.
I think Nine's a lot like Buddhism. Really, it's like there is no self. There is no other. There is no. The world is just maybe not even a reality. It's just a perception that we have.
Yeah, we're in
so
Matrix.
I think there's a sort of. I think they're very similar. I say nihilism and Buddhism have a lot of parallels, really, in some ways, in my mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think you just denial of this reality and this idea that there is some sort of purpose to life is a bit kind of. I don't know. I think with these days it's hard to kind of say there is a purpose. We don't live in a kind of a God-filled world where we have a divine purpose anymore.
Except money.
Well, maybe yours. It's good for you. You live working.
Yeah. Our library patrons have requested that artists interested in political and social issues be invited to participate in events. So I have a few questions about democracy.
Democracy?
Yeah. So I doodle with democracy issues here in Tampere City Library. What do you think about democracy?
Well, I think it's
easy question.
We work. I'm working a little bit with a Ukrainian director, and he actually he's funny because he talks about democracy, and he says it's very interesting how people from the West, I think that means the further West, the worse it gets. They don't really seem to have these are his words. They don't really seem to value democracy. They seem to take it for granted, But I think that if you actually lived, if you've lived in a non-democratic communist system, then you're, it's very, very, it's not very nice, not to have the freedom to be able to express your beliefs, things like that. And so he always said, well, it's a shame how Western people seem to take it so much for granted these days, And so when you see all these kind of horrible people in the world, people like, Donald Trump and Marine Le Pen, and all of these people, who are really, you just know that they're not interested in democracy. They don't, and it's actually a real shame that this seems to be happening in the West. That we're starting to actually not care. We don't care enough about it, and we should care about democracy, and we should support democracy. But it's not, if you're, in Greece, there's all these left wing. I can hardly tell the difference between the left and the right these days, really. But they're left wing, and they, it's all NATO. NATO are the evil ones. This is what they think. So basically, they support Putin because they're so much against NATO, and well, who's going to protect democracy? Who's going to protect democracy? If we NATO, then when you've got a complete fascist like Putin, I think he's going to. If somebody doesn't, if nobody opposes him, he's just going to walk all over us, and then Donald Trump will come from the other side and walk all over us. So.
Good buddy.
We have to believe in democracy because if we don't, we're all going to be living in a totalitarian society,
Exactly.
So we have to die for it. Okay, I think I hope that that's not going to happen, but we have to stand up for democracy.
I think what people are often misunderstand is that I often hear the criticism in democracy. See, it doesn't work. It didn't work. How many years, how many decades did we vote and what have we left? What is there now? Yeah, but it's not the democracy, in my opinion. Everyone has their own. In my opinion, I think democracy is a wonderful vehicle to figure out which of us will tomorrow lead us to the food source, whatever. And then we figure out, okay, will be you, everyone agreed, good. Democracy. But I think the criticism goes towards the parties which are elected. How are they connected to which other countries, which military sources, which companies who pay them? I think that is the bad thing that's going on. The connections of the parties that have been voted. So there's not enough limits for those parties. So they do whatever they like. In England, this is not a funny place at the moment. They go berserk. It's just they take all the money they can and give it to their buddies. And the people are standing there, excuse me, the children are suffering. Yeah, well, we bought another house and another yacht, and you know. So it's not the democracy. It's the parties that have been elected. I can just encourage everyone, found a new party, start something new, and try to stay away from the company's money. Yeah. And try to be a little more honest, then democracy has a good chance.
Yeah, that sounds almost oligarchy.
But it's also, I mean, you know, like there's still the possibility, you know, that you can actually vote. You know, in the democracy, there's also the possibility you could actually still vote that party out. You know, the corrupt party out. But once you get rid of the democracy, then you can't. Then you know, whatever they do, you know, you've got no. I don't think
the Chinese Communist Party is going anywhere anytime soon. You know, that's not an option. So there's at least, you know, we do have it, but like you said, it's been kind of people just don't really seem to. They're not. I feel people aren't really invested anymore in democracy. Certainly in the United Kingdom, they feel alienated, mistrustful, and there needs to be some kind of reorganisation that allows people to actually feel that their voices have some effect. Because I think a lot of time people just can't be bothered to vote because they don't think it's worth it, and then that allows people who are in a position of authority then to kind of manage the situation. We live in a managed democracy now. I don't think we live in a true democracy. We live in a managed one, which is managed by whatever ruling party happens to be in there, and they'll do everything they can to make sure that they stay in, and be that no one else gets any opportunity to get involved in important decisions. And I personally think in England we should move to a more proportional representative system rather than this first past the post two-party system, which is outdated and only serves interests of people who have power. And I would find it more comfortable for me to have a broader range of voices deciding what the hell happens to people who live in this country, in my country. But not both the two big parties don't want that, because that obviously would not help them very much in the future. So I think people need to accept. People should find a way to spread out this kind of overbearing managed democracy system that we have, and hopefully find one that engages the population a little bit more. Exactly. Now, whether that works in such a big country, I know in Switzerland people have more opportunity to kind of voice their opinions, but that's a small country compared to the 65 million people that live in the UK, so that's obviously more tricky. I think smaller countries have a more realistic chance of actually getting a more equitable sort of democratic system. Whereas it seems like the bigger you get, you end up with Donald Trump or China or Brazil. But even Brazil can change. Even you know, all these other countries, they still have the opportunity of getting rid of someone if they can get together enough. But people are so alienated that I worry that people can't get their shit together because they're just why should I bother?
And they are also alone, because that's one of the reasons when people detach from system. The ability of art to irritate and create friction is more important than ever, I think. Are you singing activists? What social issues do you want to promote?
Crucifixion, did you say?
Singing activists.
Oh, activists. I think it's crucifixion. I was saying, that's an unusual question. She's asking me. Crucifixion is more important.
What are your thoughts on crucifixion? Do you think it's still a valid
crucifixion?
A valid form of social control, or do you think it may have had its day?
That's a better question.
Are you a singing activist?
What?
Are you a singing activist?
Singing activist. Well, I always liked it when there was one journalist in the Czech Republic who said that we're radical socially rather than politically. Mm-hmm. We're social radicals rather than political. And, you know, that's... I think that's probably true. You know, Adrian was talking about two-party systems and all this kind of stuff. And you know, it's all really boring, and you know, it's kind of like a sort of pseudo sort of fascism, isn't it? Really, because you only have these two parties. So I think we're sort of more socially radical.
Yeah, I mean, like Dickens was a social, you know, wanted to highlight social problems. That's kind of the way we've approached, you know, what we do is by exposing things, talking about. You know, things.
Always like subversive people, you know, people that sort of challenge the norms and you know, sort of people that are different, you know, and that's what weirdos tend to do, don't we? Right?
Yeah, weirdos.
Weirdos.
Like the weirdos.
We love weirdos. all sorts of weirdos. We love, and and they tend to,
We have a few minutes left, so you sent us amazing lists of recommendations. So can you give one from that? Can you? One of these recommendations. Which one you want to pick from your recommendations?
There's a lot of stuff there. I mean, it's all sort of. I mean, you know, Martin's stuff. It's all good stuff, isn't it?
Who?
All your stuff, you know, all the good music.
Did I put Aki Kaurismäki down there?
No, you didn't.
I've been watching loads of Aki...
Oh, you brown nose.
I've been watching loads and loads of Aki Kaurismäki films. I've watched about 10 of them in the last month.
Yeah.
And so I get very excited when I'm walking around in Finland, because every so often you meet someone and you think, oh, he could be in an Aki Kaurismäki film. We met someone who was working on the ferry, going across, you know, in the harbour, and he was like a character from an Aki Kaurismäki film, you know. I'm sort of this is something which is making me I'm quite focused on Finnish people at the moment, and we're actually one of the things that people are saying, but not just us, though we were joking about it, but then Finnish people were joking as well about it, is that Finnish people don't talk very much.
We can be silent.
It's true, really, because none of them have talked. None of them have said a word.
When we do a concert, you don't say a word.
Exactly. That's true. I must be Finnish. Yeah.
I think it's all written down here, isn't it? I mean, you know, there's just lots of recommendations. Most of the things that I wrote about are things that I've seen recently. I mean, it was just the kind of, you know, I've been seeing quite a lot of films at the moment. You know, like, you know, what's it, the zone of interest, and which I thought was an amazing kind of chilling film about, you know, what goes on behind a wall. You know, people pretending they've got wonderful lives, and they do have wonderful lives, but, you know, at the cost of extreme horror and misery. You know, and they're more than happy to go along with it because, you know, who doesn't want maids? You know, and, you know, I think, you know, I've seen quite a good... I saw Mark Ribot, apparently he's been here. I saw him play twice last month. It was great both times. And he was doing lots of, you know, folk songs that he'd written a whole album, Songs of Resistance. So he was an interesting take on sort of those sort of protest songs. Yeah, so, you know, there's lots of good stuff out there at the moment. I've been surprised how much stuff is happening at the moment. I think that's... For me, I always try and find stuff that's contemporary in some way that speaks to me, whereas Martin is more of he likes the kind of the sort of the
Agatha Christie,
Sherlock
Holmes,
exactly, all those great characters. Paddington, Rupert.
I'm a big fan of Rupert as well. I don't really
and Boody's, obviously, you know, classic rock and roll.
Well, I would always recommend to get out of your comfort zone. If you read a few books on that topic or listened a lot of music in that area, go one step further and see what's uncomfortable, what is weird, and come to our show tonight. You know,
I'm going to see a band called Piss Jeans on Saturday night. Piss Jeans, yeah. And then I'm going to see a band called Sun. They're so loud you have to wear industrial ear defenders to go into the concert.
Really?
You can always leave a show. You can always put a book down, but give it a try, give it a shot, and see if you like it.
Yeah.
That's my recommendation. Anything, dance, performance, whatever.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.
Kiitoksia vielä Tiger Lillies ja Marjo. Juttu oli storytelling, lots of more, but there is sound check ja voidaan jatkaa G Livelabin kanssa yhteistyötä, niin pakko päästä keikalle. Kiitetään myös G Livelabia, joka tuottaja Jaadi on täällä paikalla. Kiitoksia. Hei, pääsiäinen hyvää pääsiäistä tässä vaiheessa, mä en ikinä sellaista muista sanoa, mutta ensi viikon lauantaina täällä on viikate. Kannattaa tulla ajoissa, jos tulee. 24. Metson messut, jäätävä kova ohjelma 5-6 lavalla. 24. Pistäkää mieleen. Kiitoksia. Nähdään.